Welcome to the Natural Health Podcast, where we bring awareness of sustainable health in the business hustle space. Natural Health Podcast is perfect for the high-performing, business-minded individuals who want to work with their biochemistry to achieve optimal health. It's Wednesday, which means it's time for What Would I Do? In today's episode of Natural Health Podcast, we discuss this week's question. All questions are kept confidential. I read them and answer them as if it was me. Hence why it's called What Would I Do? The information provided is not to be taken as advice and is solely for information purposes only. I am not here to cure, treat, or provide medical advice. I'm here to educate and inform you so you're able to take steps towards optimal health. Please discuss any medical issues or lifestyle changes with your healthcare professional. Let's get into today's question. Today's question says, why is our food modified and does it have any effect on our health? What an absolutely amazing question. I love questions like this because one, it means that you're aware of food. Two, it means that you know that some of the food is modified. And three, you suspect there are some health issues related to it. That's absolutely amazing. I'm so glad that you're being proactive with how you're seeing food and not just looking at it as an apple, but you're looking at it, what is this apple and can I know a little bit more information about it? Love it, love it, love it. Okay, so to answer this question, I'm going to give you a little bit of a timeline in regards to food modification. So bear with me, I'm going to be reading off here so you get a bit of an understanding why food's been modified and where the process actually came from, right? So we can look at 8,000 BC. Humans used traditional modification methods like selective breeding and crossbreeding for plants and animals who had desirable traits. So 8,000 BCE, we saw a fruit and we're like, more of this fruit would mean that we're fuller, or this animal's amazing, so we're going to breed this animal more than that animal. So back in the days, that was what was seen as modification, right? And then in 1866, what happened? Two different types of peas were identified, and identified the basic process of genetics, right? So that's where the basic process of genetics was identified by Gregor Mendel, an Austrian monk, right? 1922, the first hybrid corn was produced and sold commercially. That was ages ago, so nearly 100 years ago, right? 1940, plant breeders learned to use radiation or chemicals to randomly change an organism's DNA. So in 1940, they were looking at and being able to change the DNA of plants. Crazy, I say, right? 1953, so what happened is they identified the structure of DNA. 1973, they developed genetic engineering by inserting DNA from one bacteria to another, changing things around, right? 1982, the FDA approved first consumer GMO product, which was known as insulin to treat diabetes. 1992, FDA policy states that food from GMO plants must meet the same requirements, including the same safety standards and foods derived from traditionally bred plants. Then what happened in 1994? The first GMO tomato becomes available, right? In the 1990s, what becomes available for the consumer is summer squash, soybean, cotton, corn, papaya, tomatoes, potatoes, and canola. Okay. In 2003, the World Health Organization developed international guidelines and standards to determine GMO foods. 2005, GMO alpha and sugar beet are available for sale in the United States, which sugar is available in every single product. So what does that mean? You may be having sugar, you may be having GMO in all of your products if you're having processed foods, okay? In 2015, the FDA approves an application for the first genetic modification in an animal for use as food, a genetically engineered salmon. In 2017, GMO apples are available for sale in the US. And 2019, FDA completes consultation on first food from a genome-edited plant. Okay, so now that we know a little bit of a timeline about GMOs, let's have a look at how they're made, right? So for GMOs to be made, a few processes need to take in place. The first process is we need to identify. What does that mean, right? To produce GMO plants, scientists first identify what trait they want the plant to have, such as do you want them to be resistant to drought, a herbicide, or an insecticide, right? So they find an organism such as a microorganism, a plant, animal that already have a trait that you want. So, for example, in this example, scientists wanted to create an insect-resistant corn to reduce the need to spray herbicides. They identified a gene in a soil bacterium which produced a natural insecticide that's been used for many years, right? So they identified, okay, we want whatever this organism has, we want it in this corn. So that's the first one. The second step is copy, okay? After scientists find the gene that they desire, they copy that gene, okay? Third one is insert. Next, scientists use tools to insert the gene into the DNA of the plant. So they take that DNA from the, let's say, organism and put it into the plant. By inserting that, it helps it become resistant to that bacteria, that strain of pesticides, for example, okay? Then the fourth one, the last one is grow, right? In the laboratory, scientists grow the new, let's say, corn in this instance to ensure it's adopted the desired trait, which is insect resistance, right? If successful, scientists first grow and monitor the new plant in the greenhouse and then in small fields tested before moving into larger fields, okay? So that's kind of how like modified foods have developed, and that's how you make one, okay? The thing that we need to understand is, according to US Department, GMO seeds are used to plant over 90% of corn, cotton, soy grown in the US, which means that many of the foods that you're eating are likely to contain genetically modified foods, right? So, for example, what we need to understand is the fact that an estimate of 80% of foods in the supermarket contain ingredients that come from genetically modified crops. This is in the US, right? Can also be in Australia here, but bear with me, I'll get into it, right? While GMO crops make farming much easier, there are some concerns about the potential effects on the environment and the safety for human consumption. So there are issues with having it in the environment, but there are also issues with having it internally as a human, okay? So advantages of GMO foods mainly lay with the people who are growing them, because back in the days, they only used to be able to grow maybe 5 of those, let's say corns, and now because the resistance to this bacteria, to resistance to herbicides, pesticides, incense, whatever, the resistance to the incense now means they can grow 15. So instead of going 5 and 15, you're producing more, which means you're making more of an income, correct? Okay. So, but the issue is do we actually know what it's doing to our health, right? So the key concerns about GMO are allergies, right? GMO foods may trigger allergies reaction, right? Because the GMO foods contain foreign genes of some people worried that their gene do not recognize it and cause an allergic reaction, right? The other one is cancer, right? Because cancers are caused by DNA mutation. Some people fear that eating foods with added genes may affect their DNA. Because I've only got 10 minutes to answer this and I'm already nearly up to time, I'm actually going to do a whole podcast in regards to health concerns of genetically modified foods, okay? That's what I'm going to go into and talk about. So here I'm just going through roughly about it and letting you know that there are definitely health concerns. There are environmental concerns, okay? The thing about GMOs and Australia, okay? So if we look at GMOs in Australia, what we need to understand is the main source of GM foods in Australia are imported genetically modified soya, which can be found in chocolate, potato chips, margarine, mayonnaise, biscuits, and so forth, right? Cottonseed oil made from GM cotton, so that can be used for frying, mayo, salad dressing, and so forth. Imported GM corn can be used as an ingredient such as breakfast cereals, bread, corn chips, gravy, mixes, corn oil, corn flour, and corn syrup, which is literally in every packaged food, okay? Imported GM sugar beets, which can be used to produce sugar. Most processed foods, I don't know if you know about this, but they contain sugar, right? So what would I do? Okay, so the question is, what would I do? Number one thing is that I would do is I would read the label about any packaged foods or even non-packaged foods that I'm getting. The food that I am getting, I would get it from my local farmer that grows it organically, locally in with the season, okay? Because there is then no chance that it is genetically modified. I would even ask my farmer, hello, Mr. Farmer or Mrs. Farmer, do you have genetically modified seeds, crops in your farm? That's it. No? Beautiful, amazing. So you're avoiding genetically modified foods. Then if I go to the supermarket, I would read the label. What is in this? Is it organic? Is it genetically modified free? Is it GMO free and so forth, right? The key is if we're buying organic, it's not going to be genetically modified. If it's genetically modified, it does not mean it is organic. So best thing to do, buy organic, buy local, buy fresh, okay? The next best thing is grow your own. Grow your own from a non-GMO organic, from an organic seed. There you have it. I hope I answered your question in regards to genetically modified foods. Now you understand how genetically modified foods are made, why they were made, the process, the history of it, and what you can do to avoid them. And I'll talk about health effects on a larger podcast where I've got more time to go into more detail about it for you. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me at mihaela.raguz on Instagram, or just shoot through a question through here and I'll be able to answer it hopefully on the podcast. Remember, you're not alone on the journey to optimal health. I'm here to assist you and make this journey a pleasant one. Until next Wednesday, love you.